Broadcasting from the KTWU studios in Topeka, Kansas, Arts Incorporated presents the Karen Hastings Players in Sherlock Holmes and the Hound of the Baskervilles, a radio dramatization by Philip Grecian based on the novel by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. Back in time to the 1940s and the golden age of radio. Turn out your lights and move in close to the glow of your radio dial for Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes and the Hound of the Baskervilles.
My name is Dr. John H. Watson, and for many years I shared rooms at 221 B. Baker Street with Mr. Sherlock Holmes, the world's first consulting detective, and kept a record of his cases. Some, such as the case of the aluminium crutch, or the horrible tale of the giant rat of Sumatra, may never see the light of day. But others, with Holmes' permission, I wrote up for publication. Let me tell you now about one of the strangest cases. It is a story of deceit, a story of murder. It is the story of the Hound of the Baskervilles. Most days, Holmes rose very late, but on this particular morning, he was awaiting for me in the parlor and suggested a walk while breakfast was prepared. I accepted the invitation with alacrity, and we set out, returning half an hour later.
Ah, look, Watson. Mrs. Hudson has laid the breakfast table.
Smells like curried chicken.
Excellent deduction, Watson. She has risen to the occasion.
Ham and eggs, too.
We lack only tea and coffee. And if I am correct, Mrs. Hudson should be knocking on the door just about now. Ha! Come in.
Your tea, Mr. Holmes.
And coffee.
Of course.
You see, Watson, I put them somewhere over there, Mrs. Hudson.
Yes, sir.
You guessed.
I deduced.
Oh, Mr. Holmes, how can you live like this? Stacks of books, piles of papers.
They're not to be touched.
I have to put the tea tray down somewhere.
The books on this table, Holmes, could we
I
perhaps...
put them on the mantel next to the correspondence file.
I don't see
He
it.
means these papers fastened down with the jackknife.
Look at what you've done to the mantel. Mr. Holmes, this is not a good way to keep your letters.
On the contrary, I could find any one of them in an instant.
There you are, Mrs. Hudson. Put the tray on the table.
Thank you, Doctor. Ah, what's this?
What?
All of these holes in the wall.
Not just holes, Mrs. Hudson. If you would be so good as to step back.
Step back.
Yes.
Like this.
More. Good. Now, do you see a pattern?
Yes, they're letters. V-R?
Quite right. The initials VR for Victoria Regina, a tribute to the Queen executed in pointillism.
Pointillism.
Yes, in the spirit of the young French painter Seurat, my medium was a single-shot pistol
A gun?
and a box of rimfire cartridges.
He did it last week while you were away. Calls it explosive calligraphy.
Well, it's ruined the wallpaper.
It has.
And the plaster.
I feel strongly that the appearance of the room is not improved by it.
The best art is controversial
Will that be all then?
until our visitor arrives.
Oh, you were expecting a visitor?
He's been here while we were out, correct, Mrs. Hudson?
Correct, Mr. Holmes.
And he will be back soon. When he does, show him up, won't you?
Yes, sir. Excuse me.
Of course.
How did you know about
A
the...
visitor?
Yes.
There in the corner, you see, he's left his walking stick.
So he has. I didn't notice it there.
Of course you didn't. Here, examine it. What can you tell me?
Well, there's a silver band.
Engraved, yes, and it says...
To James Mortimer, Royal College of Surgeons from his friends of the CCH,
Royal College
1884.
Royal College of Surgeons. And so?
He is a medical doctor like myself.
Quite right, what else?
He is elderly.
Excellent.
A country practitioner who makes many of his calls on foot.
Why so?
The stick has been knocked about, you see. The ferrule is worn down.
So it is.
And so I deduce he's done a good deal of walking with it.
Perfectly sound, Watson, perfectly sound.
And CCH, well, that must be the something hunt, a local hunting club, to which he has given some surgical assistance.
Splendid, Watson.
Truly?
You may not be luminous, my dear friend, but you are a conductor of light. and I am very much in your debt.
Why, thank you, Holmes.
Of course, your conclusions are completely wrong.
I beg your pardon?
Oh, the man is certainly a country practitioner, and he walks a good deal.
Well, then.
But the H in CCH likely stands for hospital. In fact, I would venture to say Charing Cross Hospital.
Oh, well, of course, now that you say it.
And when might such a stick have been presented?
Well, I
Obviously, at the moment Dr. Mortimer left the hospital.
left the hospital to retire.
To start a country practice.
Possible.
Probable.
But if he was on the hospital staff,
Yes.
well, a doctor would have to have a well-established London practice to hold such a position.
Quite so.
And he would have to be older, elderly, and upon his
I
retirement...
agree, Watson, that were he on staff, he would, in fact, be older. I did not suggest, however, that he was on staff.
Well, but
And if he was not on staff, what was he?
I don't know.
A senior medical student, of course.
Oh, well, certainly possible now
and
that
he
you...
left 5 years ago.
the date on the stick, yes.
So your elderly family practitioner emerges as a young fellow, under 30, amiable, unambitious, and absent-minded.
Amiable?
The stick was presented by...
His friend.
Precisely. He must be amiable, else they would not have bestowed such a splendid gift. Nor would they have specified friendship.
Unambitious?
He abandoned a promising London career for the country.
Absent-minded?
He left his walking stick, but no visiting card. And he owns a dog, larger than a terrier and smaller than a mastiff.
The dog's a guest.
Not so. You see here, look, the dog has often carried his master's stick.
Oh, teeth marks.
Exactly. It's a heavy stick, Watson.
Yes, it is.
Heavy stick, large dog. Judging by the space from side to side, its jaw is too broad for a terrier, too narrow for a mastiff. It may have been... yes it is. A curly-haired spaniel.
My dear fellow, you can tell that by the teeth marks.
No.
Then how?
By looking past you and through the window when I saw him tie his dog. Mrs. Hudson will be showing him in any moment now. The adventure begins. Come.